Welcome back to Rockstock Channel. It is Tuesday, April 8th, and we're back with an update with Bill Willoughby of Century Lithium, who we first introduced through our Getting to Know You series in June of last year. Century Lithium, previously known as Cypress Development, is an advanced developer of a Nevada sediment project which has been collaborating with Koch Technology Solutions. In the context of Lithium Americas announcing a final investment decision last week for its Thacker Pass sediment project in Nevada, the lithium investor universe should be considering what other U.S. sediment projects may follow LAC's trajectory. Recall that Lithium Americas raised nearly $3 billion in funding from the U.S. government, GM, and Tier 1 private equity firm Orion Resource Partners. From our observations, Century Lithium, which produced a feasibility study last year, could be the next cab off the rank among sediment plays in the western USA. For disclosure purposes, please note that Rodney and I are not strategic advisors to nor invested in Century Lithium. And of course, we are not financial advisors, and nothing in this video should be considered investment advice. Please do your own research and read the disclaimers in this video. Looking at the RK Equity Scoreboard, Century Lithium trades on the Toronto Venture Exchange, ticker symbol LCE.V, and on the OTCQX, ticker symbol CYDVF. Century Lithium has a market cap of about 50 million Canadian dollars, or about 35 million US dollars. This is about the same level as when we interviewed Bill at the end of June, but 85% down from its all-time high at $2.44 Canadian cents in November 2021. Century's current market cap is about equivalent to the $37 million the company has raised since 2021. Century has been quite prudent with its treasury and managed its capital structure reasonably well. The company last raised $18 million in capital in 2022 at $2 a share, after raising $19.5 million at $1.25 per share in March 2021. The company currently has about $4.5 million US in the bank as of Q4 2024, having spent $30 million to date. You could follow Century Lithium at centurylithium.com and on X at Century Lithium. Century is covered by several sell-side analysts at Noble Capital, Alliance Global, PI, and Hallgarden. If you'd like to receive any of these research reports, please email us at rockstockchannel@rkequity.com. And with that intro out of the way, welcome back, Bill, to Rockstock Channel. It's been a busy year for you.
So, Bill, to recap the Angel Island project in Nevada, it's flat-lying, minimal overburden, does not require drilling and blasting. It's near infrastructure and it's leachable, meaning it'll require limited reagent consumption. Is that a good and fair description?
Yeah, it's a good description of the basic layout of the project and our location in Nevada. We're halfway between Reno and Las Vegas and located in Clayton Valley, which is a closed basin right next to Albemarle's Silver Peak operation. To your description, I would add that we have a unique patent pending process. It's a chlor-alkali process, which makes our clay process different, a clay project different than others in our space. Others in our space are using a sulfuric acid leach. We're using chlor-alkali leach, meaning we take salt water, electric power, and we make our reagents on site. It's environmentally sound from the basis of using a local resource of the salt, using electric power, and then being able to do that in an efficient manner for water. So we've got a very good process that's developed and patents pending on it.
And importantly, since we last spoke, there was an executive order released in March this year entitled Immediate Measures to Increase American Mineral Production. So given the escalating tariff standoff that we're seeing, and particularly with China and export restrictions, it looks like this could be a serious initiative. What are your thoughts on that order?
Well, Yeah, I think my thoughts are all positive about where we sit in the U.S. It's been known that lithium is a strategic commodity and of importance to the U.S. even before this executive order last month. I think that executive order actually spells it out and puts us even a better position for where we are. We're both an advanced project technologically and in permitting, and we're well located. So, as being a future supply of lithium, I think we have a lot of things on the go. And anything this executive order helps clarify that it's of importance to the U.S. and that we can do things with the project to advance it and get ourselves, as Howard said, be the next one off the rack in terms of projects in the U.S. So,
Right. And how will the government look to assist mineral production practically? And at what level are you as a company engaging with the relevant parties?
well, last part of that, we're engaging on the state and federal level, engaged with our BLM at the district and the state office. And we're also engaged with our elected officials in government and making ourselves known in that area, getting our foot in the door with respect to the benefits of, say, this executive order and how things could shape up for the U.S. And in that respect, permitting is an obvious help that the federal government could give us, accelerating our permitting steps to get us to production. That regard, we are looking at all of our options and how we do an accelerated permitting program. Um, the other areas that the federal government can help us in all projects, we got to. China is obviously a consideration for the industry, and how do you bring projects to the U.S. and onshore them? I think tax incentives are a big part of that. Other parts of that are federal growth loans and grants. We've actively investigating those and having talks with the federal government about moving ahead with those. And the last part of that executive order, as I recall, they talked about introductions to other financing parties, and we'll see how that shapes up. But all in all, I think we're in a good place. We've got a feasibility study. That's a unique step for us. Uh, Lithium Americas at Thacker Pass has already got a record of decision out of the federal government. They don't need help with their permitting. Uh, Mioneer over at Rhyolite Ridge similarly has had a record of decision. So if you look around the landscape of projects in the western U.S., I think we're unique in that we are advanced. We are close to getting all our baseline studies finished for our permitting steps and getting the plan of operations done. So I think we're in a great position to take advantage of attention of the federal government in permitting.
You mentioned there, the feasibility study, and you completed in 2024, but you've done an internal optimization study, and there's potential CAPEX reduction of up to 25%, I think, on phase one. But this will require an updated feasibility study. What are the plans on that front?
Well, we plan to go ahead with that this year and do the update. We need it for our plan of operations work. A lot of that attention in the optimization study was in processing in the areas of the direct lithium extraction DLE area and also in the water purification, the reverse osmosis steps. So, yeah, we are working on those steps continually and trying to do the best we can in optimizing the process, which I think we made huge strides in the last year over. And that was a large basis for that optimization study that we did internally. We do need to go through the steps of a final feasibility study, see what the impacts are on the rates of return and all that. But I think it should be an easy exercise for us at this point with all the numbers we have.
And that was my next question is a 25% CapEx reduction, how would that broadly affect your original IRR estimate?
Yeah, well, on that, you can get an idea of it out of the feasibility study. There's a sensitivity section You can see what plus or minus 25% on CAPEX does for the project overall. Our expectation by doing this is that we would bump that IRR, which in the FS was at 17%, that we would see something over 20 with it. So that's an expectation. We're looking at proceeding with that, doing the engineering study outside of the company to get that finished. But we're positive about it. So
Right. And then in your original feasibility study, there was you used an estimate of, I think, $600 a ton for sodium hydroxide, which brings down your net OPEX to below $3,000 a ton. I'll be honest, I don't know that market well. How stable and predictable is the sodium hydroxide price?
well, I think at this point it's probably more stable than lithium.
It's
We've
not
seen
hard.
huge reduction in lithium price over the last year, whereas sodium hydroxide prices have been generally stable. We use $600 a ton for the caustic price in our FS, and I think that's a fairly conservative price overall. Most of the U.S., speaking of trade and tariffs and such, most of the caustic in the Western U.S. is imported, comes from overseas to the tune of about 500,000 tons a year of caustic. And there's not all that much produced in the Western U.S. There's only 2 plants in the western part of the country on the coast and one in Wyoming. So I think we're well located for it. We don't see any supply issues on that front. And we just did a MOU with the company Orica Cyanco, which is a major supplier of mining chemicals in Nevada. And I think that's another indication that that's a very stable market for us going forward.
And another thing I think that's kind of staying out for you is you've got a water rights permit in the Clayton Valley. How difficult would it be for a new project to secure the same?
Well, I think a new project, if it was in Clayton Valley, would be extremely difficult, if not impossible. For us, I think our water right gives us it's enough for us to do easily our phase 1 and 2 programs. Phase 3, we would probably need another maybe 20% of our base water supply that we have. But overall, I think we're in well positioned. And for another company to come into Clayton Valley and do that, that's very tight. Albemarle owns the majority of the water rights in the valley. But I would add for that, in respect to water, our process, the chlor-alkali process we have is very water efficient, very in terms of relative demand for making a product such as lithium. I think we would be very favorably viewed environmentally for that.
Okay, great. And, Nevada itself has long been considered to be the best jurisdiction for extractive industries in the U.S. Has Century's experience in the area been consistent with that view?
Oh yes, very. I think Nevada is a favorable jurisdiction in terms of the people that work within the state and the government, at both federal and state level, in the permitting process. So that's all good. But when it comes to permitting, it's location, location, location. And I think our location relative to the environment, say for wildlife, watersheds, archaeological sites, we are definitely in a good place. It's almost a brownfield site being in Clayton Valley next to Albemarle. And all our baseline work so far tells us that we have no threatened endangered species, that the permitting aspects all look positive for us.
Okay, great. And as a reminder to viewers, you've had an operating pilot plant that's in its 4th year, and has consistently been producing battery grade carbonate. Is all going well at that pilot?
Yeah, we've now shifted it over from doing research work towards the feasibility study over to more of a demonstration mode. A lot of that is just to save on the costs. We did a lot of the piloting on the process and did a pretty significant changes in the process throughout the last year. On the lithium carbonate side, we've been making more than just, say, a bench scale amount of lithium carbonate, but pretty good lots of lithium carbonate from the pilot plant now for about the last year. And calling it battery grade, that's in the eye of the beholder, of course, because you know each battery manufacturer will have their own criteria for that carbonate material. Is it the right grain size or the right low impurities? But we're quite pleased for where we accomplished bringing our pilot plant to the point that we are making lithium carbonate in some quantity. We made about a quarter ton so far of the material, and we've sent it out to a couple people to look at it on the OEM side.
It's always good. And Bill, what's happening? Are there ongoing discussions with potential strategic partners?
Yeah, absolutely. We were beating the street, trying to make ourselves known and talking to a few strategics along the way. And so those discussions are ongoing. Our MOU with Orica Cyanco in Nevada is an example of that on the sodium hydroxide side. It took a little while to get to an understanding, but I think that's a very positive relationship that we're still working on in terms of the supply aspects. And on the lithium side, yeah, there's some hesitation, I would say, out of the OEMs in terms of offtakes these days, just given where the lithium industry has gone over the last, oh, I'd say 2 years. But I think we're favorably viewed. And when we get ourselves better known coming out of the gate here, people will realize we're just not another name in the lithium space, that we actually mean we're being what we say and we're going to get it done.
And Bill, when are you likely to update the feasibility study?
Oh, well, that's coming in the probably the summer and fall.
Okay, great.
But that is probably lower priority right now on our list than the permitting aspect. I think that executive order has given us an opportunity that's unique, and we're well positioned to take advantage of that.
So that's you focusing, that is the next major milestone.
Our next major milestone will be on the permitting front. Yes.
Great. Howard?
Could you walk through the steps on permitting? Because I know you're on federal land, I think, and
Right.
under Trump one, I remember Lithium Americas because Trump said anything that goes through the process had to be done in like 1 year. Then it was legally fought for a while. I don't know what the regulations are now, but like in terms of record of decision and I forget the notice of intent and all of these things, is there a specific process? And uh, does Trump's executive order speed up things from what we might have thought just a few months ago under Biden?
Well, if you read the executive order, it talked about having a 10-day period to recognize projects that had their plan of operations in place. We're not quite at that point because what do we have? We had about 21 baseline studies that we had to complete and have reviewed by BLM. We've only have one left, which is air quality baseline survey. And once we get that completed and in, then we'll be ready to submit a plan of operations and then take the NEPA process. That's still the same in Nevada as what it was a few years ago under Trump, which is, hey, you got 12 months to execute an EIS or EA, depending what level you're at, and then take that to a record of decision. So it's possible that there is an accelerated route that's in the works right now. If you get on the list of advanced projects, which we're trying to do, then possibly you get into something. I think there's a Fast 41 program that we could enter and just get that recognition that we're checking all the boxes and that we're in a good location to bring in a new lithium project into the U.S.
Okay. Do you have people on staff, or have you engaged like a lobbying firm that's helping you navigate Washington?
Not a lobbying firm, but we do have some people that have connections that are fairly high up. So
Okay. You mentioned your process is a patented chlor-alkali process, not a sulfuric acid leach. I know that both Lithium Americas and Ioneer are using sulfuric acid or have to build sulfuric acid plants. And I think in LAC's case, the electricity generated from that is going to become a revenue line for them. But it also requires like a lot of sulfur. And I think it did add to their overall CAPEX. Could you discuss or compare and contrast, your process from a CapEx perspective and availability of, Rodney mentioned the sodium hydroxide, I guess, input, the relative availability and price stability of that, versus sulfur?
Sure. Well, the sulfur market is dependent upon the oil and gas industry to start out with, because that's where native sulfur comes from. In terms of generating sulfuric acid, you put in the molten sulfur or raw sulfur into an acid burner, and for about every 3 tons of 1 ton of sulfur, you make about 3 tons of sulfuric acid. So you can calculate how much your acid requirement is for your project and determine then how much raw sulfur you need as feed. The I believe Ioneer and Lithium Americas are looking at somewhere around 3,000 ton a day plus on sulfuric acid requirements, which means they're probably in the range of 1,000 to 1,500 tons a day of native sulfur, and that has to be brought in by truck or train. And in our case, what we're looking at is a chlor-alkali process. Chlor-alkali plants are going to be more expensive than a sulfuric acid burner on the CapEx side, maybe by a factor of two, because you have electrolyzers. It's an electrolytic process. You take salt water, break the salt water apart into hydrogen chlorine, which you recombine as hydrochloric acid, and the sodium that's in the salt water combines with hydroxide and becomes sodium hydroxide, which is a byproduct. So for us, if we use, uh, we designed it this way, and we're thinking consciously that we had a brine resource there in Clayton Valley that we could use. Take the salt water, run it out of the ground, and do some upgrading of it, purification, and run that into a chlor-alkali process. CapEx side is going to be higher per unit of lithium, but on the plus side, we generate a surplus of sodium hydroxide. Nevada has a ready market for it. So I think because the end result is that it's very positive on the OPEX. So, and that's the benefit to us.
Okay, so your CapEx is higher, and but your byproduct,
Relatively high.
okay, but you don't have this need to import 1,500 tons of sulfur a day.
Correct. Yeah.
Uh,
We
Um,
want to do it all local so that we don't have that transportation aspect. We also didn't want to have to be in the same market competing for sulfur with the likes of Ioneer and Lithium Americas.
right. Okay.
So,
So, less movement, because I remember like the truck movement was a consideration of the approval process, right? There was just a lot of trucks, so you have fewer inputs. The overall disturbance of the area should be lower, as a result of
yeah, truck traffic
not
is a
having to import the
concern.
sulfur.
So,
Yeah.
mm,
And okay, and your byproduct. This is a byproduct that you'll sell into a localized market. Their byproduct is a bit of electricity in Lithium America's case. Okay, look, it sounds very interesting. Look, the market for lithium broadly, obviously, is bad, right? We've circled back. Um, your stock was 244. It's now 33 cents, down 85%. You're trading essentially at replacement value. You can't replicate what you've done. You're very advanced stage. So there were many prior believers, of Lithium Americas as well as Ioneer. And, Elon Musk famously said there's enough lithium in Nevada to supply the entire, US EV industry. And there's no reason to believe that more projects won't get built. And yours, as we've said at the outset, um, you were the first one, kind of like after Lithium Americas and Ioneer. There have been a number of other entrants in Nevada sediments since then. But I remember when you came on the scene, whatever, in 2019, 2020 as Cypress Development, a very large asset. And, congratulations on all of the milestones last year. You still have a number of pins to knock down on the permitting side and on the financing side. But for the long-term lithium bulls and believers like ourselves, now would look to be an interesting time, to look at the company given its valuation and advanced stage of development.
There's a lot of lithium resources in Nevada and the U.S. that I think a key part of there is the process. We're well advanced in our process. We've got that patent pending process in place, and I think we're in a unique position where we are geographically and in terms of the political climate right now. So,
The political climate is good if you look at the forest from the trees of current tariffs. But the market's up today. South
mm,
Korea is the latest one, following Japan, who has started to enter discussions with Trump. And Japan and South Korea are very big investors across the lithium ion battery supply chain in America and globally. So, the art of the deal. Let's see what happens. America voted for volatility in November, and they're getting what they voted for. So nice to see you again, Bill. Look forward to updating our viewers as you progress throughout the rest of the year.
yeah, appreciate it. Thanks to you and Rodney.